going back to changing your reality is like, so the more times you can change your reality or just challenge your reality, challenge like the reality you've created for yourself, and be open to accepting, because this is also the scariest part, be open to accepting the fact that you might be 100% totally wrong. And that's in fact a good thing.
Good morning from Nashville, buddy.
Man, good morning from Chattanooga. It is 10 o'clock for me. It is 9 o'clock for you.
It is. And hopefully you've got your nice trainer ride in this morning.
No, yeah, we have, first off.
That's the bonus. You got that extra hour.
Got that extra hour. That's to come. That is definitely not the reality. But for those of you that might be joining us for the first time, welcome aboard the Crushing Iron podcast. We are at episode 279.
Yeah, we are. Oh,
yeah,
you must have found the counter.
En route to who knows what. But we appreciate you joining us. We come to you every Monday and Thursday for the most part. We have some occasional extra podcasts sprinkled in, and then if we have holidays or races, sometimes we bump things to another day of the week. But regardless, we do come to you 2 days a week, and we have been for going on almost 3 years now. We cover triathlon, we cover life and lessons that the life and triathlon have taught us, and pretty much everything in between. So it's hopefully you find that a well-rounded podcast. And this is my first morning waking up in Chattanooga. I had camp all last weekend, Wednesday night through Sunday with you, with our second camp this year in Nashville, and then packed up the dog and the rest of the things that were left at the house and drove up to Chattanooga. And my wife had been here since Thursday night with the movers, and then did some hardcore decorating with her sister. And I have to tell you that they got more decorating done in the 48 hours that they were here than I would have accomplished in 48 months. It does. It looks awesome. There's obviously, like, you can't unpack your life and get everything situated in a new house in a matter of 48 hours, but there's a ton of stuff was already done, and the house looks great. We still got, all the kind of new things to do, and we got things situated last night. I hadn't seen Allie since Thursday morning. Hadn't seen Hayden since Wednesday, and so we all got to kind of reconnect yesterday and hang out and kind of get things situated. And then this morning was first day of new school for Hayden.
Wow.
Which was a little rough.
It's like going to camp for the first time.
Yeah, it is kind of probably a little more emotional, but he's going to love his new school. It's just a little bit different. Obviously, new city, new house, new school, all in like 24 hours. But we figured we'd rip off the Band-Aid and just start him in a routine. And then we left immediately and went to Lowe's to purchase a tool chest, a trash can rack, and about 78 sets of blinds that needed to be cut. So that's been my day so far. But yeah, no trainer ride so far, but I do plan on getting in something today. But busy day, but glad to be back on the cast and talking to you and talking to our audience.
Well, I'm glad you're safe and sound and in the new place. Has to feel pretty good. How's the pool?
It does feel pretty good. We don't have a pool.
Oh, okay.
But I've got my eye out. I've got a couple. Okay, I'm gonna say this.
Uh-oh.
And this, yeah. I'm going to look, because I got to tell you, Chattanooga has a pretty good open water swim scene. They have the cows here in Chattanooga, and then they always have a good couple open water races. The river's right here downtown. We're not too far from it. And they have traditionally had, because they have some pretty solid swims, like private swim schools here, or private schools that have great swim teams here, like at the high school level. And I have teetered on the urge to explore a master's team.
Oh, I thought you were going to say an above-ground pool.
Definitely not an above-ground pool. I'm generally adamantly against most master's programs because most of them are terrible. And it's like busy work. It's like when a substitute teacher comes and they give you dittos and worksheets all day as busy work. That's kind of what it is. And it's just it's not much action. It's more like a social thing. But I thought it'd be interesting to see, maybe meet some new people around town. And I've explored some. And one of the one of the guys that coaches one of the teams, I think it's at Macaulay maybe or Baylor. Stan Cochran. Anyway, he has been on the U.S. national open water swim team for a couple of years. So I would imagine he's probably got quite the resume and quite the team. So I'm thinking about doing that, but it'll take me a few weeks to kind of get settled in and find a routine and get things settled in. But just happy to be here, and was even kind of a little happier today when I hopped on and iTunes to check out. And we're traditionally pretty poor at asking for reviews and for listeners to subscribe, but we're doing it lately. And I gotta say, we really appreciate everyone who's taken the time to give us a review, subscribe. It doesn't really help you and I in terms of financially, which is how most podcasts work. We don't do commercials, we don't do sponsorships, but it helps other athletes find our podcast, be attracted to it. Hopefully we can deliver a solid message for them and they can learn the same things that you have, and it also kind of helps us grow our community on Facebook, which is a group we have for the podcast. You can search it, Crushing Iron Group, and we will let you know. I wanted to just read the first or the last two we got super quick. One is from Stop Downloads, and he says, I listen to you both all the time, especially when needed a big push of confidence. You make all the difference in my day to day. Which that means a lot. That makes so when I say it doesn't do a lot for you and I, it doesn't do a lot for us in terms of how most podcasts I think are generated and marketed in terms of creating a revenue stream. But in terms of kind of enriching our lives and making us feel good about what we do and putting out, a free podcast for as long as we have, it does. It helps me out a lot. And this next one is from Bull Wiz, and he says, "Hands down, the best triathlon podcast out there. I ran into one of the hosts, Mike, at a triathlon event last year. He's even a nicer guy in person."
Oh.
Yeah, which I'll get to that in a minute. He says Robbie and now Mike are great coaches, and they are dishing out advice on triathlon and life for free. For people like me that can't afford coaching right now, it's gold. What is there not to like? Thank you, Bulwez, for taking the time, and great
thanks,
review.
buddy.
And I gotta say, let's just throw it out there for those of our early listeners. Or Mike's the favorite.
Come on, man.
You are easily the favorite. You are the nice guy. You are the selfie guy. You are the guy that everybody likes to talk to at the at races and stuff. So yeah, Mike is a super nice guy, and yeah, he is a lot nicer in person. But he is easily the fan favorite.
That seems like a reverse.
No, it's not. It's true. Every single review. Listen, we've gotten a few reviews that have been like, hey, I used to think Robbie was kind of a prick, but he's actually kind of nice. Mike, right. The dude's fantastic. It's like your first impression is always gold. And me, mine's kind of like, a brick that smacks you across the face and then totally turns into gold, hopefully, over the course of our listening podcast relationship. But Mike is easily the fan favorite, and I won't argue with that.
I don't know, man. You're just a little bit of a you're a tough lover guy. Tough love guy.
I am a tough lover.
Tough lover. No, but seriously though, I think that's a good balance in a way. I mean, I keep that in mind all the time. Is like, as I said, I was kind of joking about having my own camp where we'd have sleep-ins and but I think that you just keep the train on the tracks and you keep driving it early. Like we got up early every day for camp, and for me that's very difficult, but I think it's good for me. It's one of those things. I mean, that's the whole. It's really the kind of the microcosm of triathlon for me, is that all these things are very difficult sometimes, but they're all probably good for you in the long run. It's sort of like you got to do hard stuff and keep working at getting better, whether it be getting up or, swimming a little further than you normally do in the open water, or riding more hills or running more hills than you normally do. It's all hard, but
it is.
In the end, it's just a little bit, of a nice little notch in your belt, that keeps you moving the right direction.
And, it's kind of a great segue into kind of the topic I wanted to spring on today, but I'll run it by you quick after we kind of recap. But we always get we had 28, I think 29 athletes come into town from one of our camps this last week, from all over the country, really, and an absolutely phenomenal group. Our June camp is always kind of ruckus and fun, and we had some new athletes come to camp. But it was a great camp. We got spoiled with the weather. There were some pop-up storms here in Nashville that kind of would have made things difficult, but this is about as good a weather as we could have imagined for camp. And we got up early every day to kind of beat the storms, and were able to get in a lot of great work. And as usual, some of the feedback that we got from camp, and this is kind of where I wanted to go today, and I think kind of what you touched on in terms of you getting up earlier than normal, is one of the athletes that came in, Erin Kavanaugh. She's from Detroit, and we were kind of talking after our swim session yesterday, and this is probably the theme for most camps, and I think for so many people is getting out of their comfort zone. And I think while that phrase get uncomfortable, that's where the growth happens. And I think there's a whole lot of truth to that. I think we kind of stick to that phrase a little too much. And the phrase that I kind of got that she was saying in so many words was that it was great to take her out of her own reality.
Mm.
And I think it's just such a great topic. And I think it was a segue because, like your sleep-in routine is that's Mike. But getting you up out of your own reality of what your usual day-to-day looks like in your routine. And most triathletes are very, very, very routine oriented. We do the same things all the time. And there's a whole lot of positives and benefits to come from that. I mean, I talk about that all the time, and I think it is. I think there's a lot of great things that you can learn from and about yourself when setting yourself up for success. But one of the things that she said, I mean, we covered that's why Nashville and the locations that we have are so great. In that, I'll run down kind of the environments that we had. We had Wednesday night dinner. Then Thursday we started at Anderson Road Beach, which was a lake. We did open water work, ran on the sand, did a bunch of hard work, and did some skills. Then we took a break and went to a place we call the Lab. It's an abandoned airfield. It is flat. You can hammer it, but it's super windy. So you're usually going to get a headwind one way and a tailwind the other. It's usually hot. And it got pretty hot as the day went on. We were out there, and then they got off and ran off the bike in hard conditions. The next day we were at the Trace, which is a beautiful place to ride. It's a kind of a designated bike path as well, so you have so much room to ride. The roads are perfectly paved, but there's a ton of hills, so much hillier than people are accustomed to. And then they ran off the bike on those hills, and then the next day, we also hit the pool that day, and we worked people hard. And that's kind of one of the things that people also kind of say is like, I'm not used to working this hard in the pool. And that's kind of a trend with triathletes as well. But then Saturday was kind of the bigger day where we ended up riding long on the Trace, and a storm came in and a lot of athletes got just poured rain on. And then we went to Percy Warner after a break and ran probably the hilliest route any of those athletes ever run on in a gorgeous environment, and then ended the camp as we usually do back at Anderson Road Beach for open water swim session. But she was talking specifically about being exposed to so many different elements and environments that she never would have purposely put herself in. Mm-hmm. And what she learned about herself as a person, an athlete that can, to her almost surprise, thrive in those other environments and atmospheres and conditions that you normally wouldn't put yourself in. So now it's kind of opened up and widened her range of opportunities for training and for racing and things you just don't know about yourself, because we all kind of get stuck. And while routine and comfort and those kind of things are important because I think it sets you up for success to build consistency, what also happens is that we kind of fall back into our own controlled reality to where we can only function within that realm. And sometimes it's just really great to expose yourself to being around different people and different athletes and different environments and different situations where you're going to be pushed out of your comfort zone, but in a way that's carefully constructed and structured to where it's safe and it's going to produce a positive outcome, and you're going to learn something about yourself that you didn't know before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good. I think, I always wonder why at the core people would come to a camp like this. Why would people come to triathlon camp? And obviously, I think, getting better and learning are two of the things. But ultimately, I think it's fun, right? Like to just have some fun.
Yeah.
and be with people, like-minded people, and all that sort of stuff. But then, then I'm like, well, who would guess that running like 6 miles with 600 feet of elevation could be fun? And then I think, well, maybe it becomes sort of the satisfaction or the confidence level that you build from something like that, and then, or a combination, and then that leads to fun, or maybe even like a little relief, or sort of this I'm capable feeling, and that becomes fun, right? Because when you see it, then you believe it.
Exactly.
And you can't always see that if you're like you're talking about in your own reality. It's very difficult because even me, like it's just that it's kind of that silly analogy, but like when people are getting up around my house, like I had a couple people stay here, awesome people, and when they're getting up at 4:30 a.m. they're just up, and that's normally nothing moves in my house till like 8, or 9 or whatever. So, but when I can see that happening and I just sort of fold myself into that, it just feels more natural, I guess. Or it's sort of like, oh, wait, I just got up 4:30 4 days in a row. I mean, that's like 4 race days in a row for me.
Yeah.
So,
when a normal week, you'd been like, no, that's not for me. I can't do that.
No, and even if I do wake up at that time, then I can kind of start moving around sometimes. I'm like, this ain't working. There's not the people energy or something
exactly.
like that.
It is. You're so
that's
right.
What happened. That just takes over at camp, I think. It's like, and I was also thinking about this too, is like, what a grind that really becomes, I mean, this not just the camp, but just this sport in general, right? It's and without that people energy, there's just eventually going to be a time when you just sort of wilt on your own. I mean, you can't. I mean, it takes a long ass time to get better in this sport and to keep going and to keep building. And how do you appreciate the little wins, or how do you take it to little next levels? And I think it is something to do with what you're talking about. Is like you got to step out of that reality sometimes, but unless someone else is going to kind of guide you or pull you in.
You nailed it. It's and I totally 100% agree with you. And there are so many times, like when athletes get burnt out, when athletes are overtraining, when athletes get mentally exhausted, it's more than likely because everything's been the same, the exposure has been the same, and it's also been more than likely isolated, or you've been surrounded by the exact same people all the time. Because let's be honest, like people are great in of itself with connection, but if they're not the right kind of people in the group atmosphere and the people you surround yourself with, you all kind of fade in that trend in that one direction altogether, then you kind of don't know what you've become, because the group has become the identity, not the person. And I see athletes all the time who I might start coaching who have left another group, like a local group, and they're like, I just kind of realized that I wasn't reaching my potential because I was doing all these specific things, but I was just kind of becoming, and don't get me wrong, we have a huge team. We have a wonderful team, but one of the biggest things that I love about our team and our squad is that everybody is an individual and everybody pushes themselves uniquely and individually, because we have so many different abilities, from total beginners who are like barely scratching the surface of being in triathlon all the way to an athlete who's won 4 Ironmen. So we have everybody in between, but everybody is super supportive, and the supporting driver and factor is you're not done yet. We're here to get better, and we're here to push you not to just be a better triathlete, but we're also going to push you and encourage you to be better at life at the same time. In that we acknowledge as a group and as specific athletes, as individuals, that triathlete is not the all-consuming 100% driving factor of every conscious decision that we make 24/7, which can't be said for all athletes. But so when I say like you can find yourself in the group, like you might find yourself in like this run group of like 3 or 4 people you're with, and then you kind of realize that you always kind of do the same thing all the time, and you're all kind of the same speed, and that really shouldn't be the case. You should be pushing yourself. So you might find yourself in that situation with people or without people. And then for those of us that isolate, you kind of get stuck in that monotonous routine of, I do kind of need to get pushed. And so I think that, again, and while I'm a huge advocate for consistency and somewhat of a routine, there you do need to find ways, and you can get get stuck, or what I would call just in a stale training regimen of, I just need something different. But it doesn't need to be haphazard, and it doesn't need to be, which is here's most athletes' way of solving it. Let me sign up for some really crazy race, or let me purchase something I don't need. Mm-hmm. That's going to surely break me out of this habit. That's surely going to break me out of this routine. But what you need to do is you need to have discussions with yourself or with your coach, whoever, and think, all right, I need things to be a little bit different, and I need things to change because I need my spark to kind of get relit. And then how do we find that? And that can look like so many different things that can be coming. You can change up the intensity distribution into a different way that's now more appealing to the athlete, because let's be honest, some athletes hate and love specific types of workouts. So that's a huge factor. But in just changing up routines and finding different ways to do things, you can keep the routine and structure while in kind of the integrity of the plan or of the benchmarks you're headed towards. But what you want to do is you want to kind of make little fine-tune adjustments to where it might feel and seem like a huge change, but when you step back, it's like, okay, it's more of a day-to-day minor change than it is an entire plan change where you might have athletes going, you know what, I need something different. I'm going to start doing track work every week, or I'm going to start doing intensity trainer rides that are all high intensity all the time, or I'm going to change. So let's change everything just for the sake of change. It needs to be a structured and guided change that's pushing you to kind of get out of your comfort zone in your routine to kind of explore more opportunities. Like you were saying in the beginning, it's like not just because like training should also be, and what we talk about a lot is like this whole journey of triathlon and racing and pushing yourself and finding things out about yourself should be this one huge journey of self-exploration. And people often get stuck in this, I'm no longer learning about myself because I'm no longer pushing myself. But I've learned just enough to kind of feel fine. So what's the point? I think I'm okay with where I'm at. I don't really want to get uncomfortable. So let's just quit reading the book and stay on this page. But if I want to get really comfortable, I'll just go back to the beginning and keep rereading this book I already know, instead of learning and pushing yourself and feeling this fulfillment from growth, but doing it again like in a structured, purposeful way that's going to set you up for success, not maybe lead you down. It's not like taking a U-turn or a hard left towards nowhere or uncertainty. It's, let's take this guided path or this situation like a triathlon camp where it's going to be structured. I know I'm going to be around good people. The atmosphere is going to be good. And it's for 3 or 4 days. It's not for 5 or 6 months. And let's see what I can learn. And then they're able to apply that to their everyday lives and really hopefully change the scope of how they approach their every day-to-day training.
Yeah, man, that's a really good way to put it. I think there's a lot of people that come to these camps and they do things they've never done before, and with success. And they leave here, and hopefully that goes back. Like we went out to the Natchez Trace, and it's a very actually a great place to ride, and there's a lot of good hills out there. I mean, it's not like mountainous, but it's solid hill climbing. And I know a lot of people, either they're, sometimes they're just not from areas that have that type of thing, or they just don't lean towards hills. I always used to talk about how when I know I'm in a good groove is when I'm coming back on a run or something like that, and I always take the hilliest route. And that's the kind of thing that I hope sort of falls over into their lives. It's sort of that first day we went out to the Trace, and, it's a beautiful long ride, 400 miles of, slow traffic and hardly any cars and all that sort of stuff. And I was kind of laughing because the first day you sent us out, I was like, yeah, we're not going to go more than 4 miles from where we're at right now. We're just going to go do a bunch of hill repeats and some really, good climbing. And I'm sure that most people don't do that type of thing. Even when they kind of quote unquote do their hill repeats, they're not on those types of hills, or they don't put that sort of focus into it. And I know that when you leave, and you think about hills, hopefully you're thinking about them differently, I was just thinking, how long of a process this is to get strong and break through different things in triathlon. It's taken, I've been in this sport 7 years, and I think working, pretty hard at it. there's definitely ups and downs and everything, but I have thrown in Ironman every year and everything like that. And now I'm like 7 years in, and I'm finally getting to the point where I look at a hill and it doesn't, hills have always been pretty good for me, but it doesn't bother me. You know what I mean? I've noticed that when I'm swimming and biking and running, and this is like the subtle sign that I've been noticing lately, and I think I talked about it with regard to Chattanooga 70.3, I'm not yearning for mile markers anymore. I'm just kind of riding past them. And it's a weird thing because, and it was like with yesterday at the swim too, it wasn't like, I don't know, there was just something that has clicked in me, and I don't know if it's fitness, and it's probably a big part of it, but also it's just sort of this, the workout's not controlling me anymore. I feel like I'm more on I'm snowballing more, I'm going downhill even when I'm going uphill, if that makes any sense. And you get to a mindset like that, and I think that you have to expose yourself over and over to different things that are challenging like that. I always, it was like after I did my first Ironman, I got that swim at Wisconsin, that mass start. I remember coming back after that and just feeling like I could swim the ocean. You know what I mean? It was just like, and to get your mind into a place that you're not dreading hills or you're not dreading mileage or these types of things. And even if it's just incrementally going up, you're used to a 30-mile ride. The next thing you know, you're doing 50 and you're not even like 30 is no big deal. It's these little things, but that's partially fitness, but I think it's a huge, huge part of mindset. And for me, that's the, I guess, ancillary benefit to going out on a camp like this where everybody's just like, all right, let's go. And in the back of your mind, you're like, man, I don't even know if I can make it 5 miles up this hill. Next thing you know, you're 30 miles in and you're like, wait a minute, how did I get here? How did I get to this point?
Well, again, like that's how athletes have now become. Like we have become so obsessed with being able to control our environment and making things predictable all the time. We can control basically every single environment all the time with training. And the more and more you see athletes go inside and hop on Zwift or Trainer Road and structure their workouts perfectly and create their workouts to where they hit a warm up of exactly 120 watts the whole time, and their intervals are exactly 220 and the rest is exactly 120, and they do the whole thing, and then everything is exact all the time. And while I see some small benefits for that, there's also a whole lot to not like about ERG Mobile. That's for another topic for another day. Is athletes have now become it's kind of fallen into two buckets where they want everything's controllable and predictable, and then you have athletes that really like to be kind of exploring and look for perspective. And when you take athletes out of their normal day-to-day, like I know where I'm going to go to swim, I know what lane I'm going to get in. I'll probably pick the exact same locker every time I walk in the gym, and I'm going to swim the same set. I'm probably going to do the exact same thing every time I go to the pool. Then I'm going to hop on my trainer, and I'm going to go in my little, pain cave, and I'll hop on my Zwift. I'm not going to be distracted by anything. I'm going to focus on the exact same thing every single time, and I'm going to control it with my smart trainer, and I don't really have to think anymore. I can just mindlessly go about it myself. And same thing with running. People will do the same thing with running now, and they'll give themselves exact paces. They love to control everything. And then when you hop into a race, guess what? You have zero. Data, metric control. You have decision-making control and control in your decisions in terms of what you can do to counteract outside obstacles or environment or people that are going to affect your race. In training, you have none of that. Unless you put yourselves in situations where there are other people, there are things to combat, there are decisions to make, there are hills to climb. And that's that's also the different mindset of specific athletes is I just want to go fast all the time. Like they'll always post their like group rides where they're riding 30 deep in a Peloton and like, I just crushed 60 miles going 24 miles an hour, hashtag epic. And then you've got the other athlete who probably doesn't post anything and goes out and grinds hill repeats and is going to end up having a super slow miles per hour, but they grinded out and they did strength work and they worked really hard for 3 hours and they also climbed, 3,035 feet of elevation. Who had the better day? The hill guy did, 100%. But that's not flashy. But they learn you learn things about yourselves when you put yourselves in situations to where you don't have control. You now have to be the person who has to react to the situation. And I also think that it requires so much more mental and emotional engagement than, which is honestly why you're going to see more and more things happen in races when it comes to cycling, because people are mindless. People are absolutely mindless now on a bike. They can sit on their trainer, and they don't even have to like switch gears. The smart trainer does it for them. They don't have to worry about the shifting left or right. They don't have to worry about turning. They don't have to worry about other people that aren't, virtually projected in front of them. They don't put themselves in situations where you have to think every millisecond. And they get on the road and they're surrounded by 3,000 people, and then they wonder why they're slower in a race versus not. And it's like, hello, like put yourselves in situations where it's going to be like the race. Same thing goes for the pool. If you find yourself being really, really fast in the pool, but you can't put together in open water, maybe some things need to change. Or you only do, structured workouts on the treadmill. You never put yourself outside in an uncomfortable situation. You're like, I can't understand why I can't put it all together when I basically work out in a scientific lab only by myself with nothing adverse ever happening unless I want it to be, to where now I'm going to go out in a race and now I'm going to be exposed to 3,000 other people who are, unfortunately, more than half of them are probably just like you. So now you put, 1,800 bubble boys out on a race, and now they have to deal with everything around them. They're like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. And I just don't think people ever will, or hopefully they will, but I don't think so many athletes take into account the demands mentally and emotionally, and then in turn physically. Like, and I guarantee you, people should know this, and they probably experience it. When you ride your trainer all winter long, and then you hop out on race day or on your first ride outside, you are so much sore the next day. Your core is more sore, your lower back is more sore, because guess what? You've had to be engaged and use people find their arms are more sore, their hands are more sore, because they're holding onto their bars like for dear life with a death grip. And you don't think those kind of things take energy? It's all about energy expenditure from the time you walk to the swim start to the time you cross the finish line. And if you control everything all the time and don't put yourself in these situations, again, they don't need to be haphazard and risk, but have some control and be free and understand that there is so much to be gained and grow from learning experiences in the real world and putting yourself in training environments with different people and different speeds and different terrain, that in different interval asks, and then there is to always be gained by the perfectly structured workout that's executed perfectly every time. Nothing else. And I think just people woefully underestimate the impact that's going to have on race day. Like I want the weathered, blue collar, hard-working athlete when push comes to shove and conditions get rough. I want them. I don't want the person who, even if they have like a little bit less quote-unquote fitness, at least I know they have real-world fitness. You kind of always joke with like your old man. You're like, dude, you got old man strength. Like you could go up and shake like the hand of like an 88-year-old guy who weighs like 105 pounds. But if he's worked on a farm his whole life or a steel mill, and he comes up and shakes your hand, he like buckles you to your knees.
Yeah.
You're like dude's just got old man strength. Like he's been doing it for so long. I'd take that guy.
Yep.
Versus the other guy who the only handwork he gets is flipping through Facebook and Instagram. And that's those are the different athletes that we have. You got Perfect Pat and Weathered Willie. And I'd take Weathered Willie every day of the week. Every day of the week. So weather yourself, people. Weather yourself.
Yeah, that's the old country strong philosophy. Where the dudes are out throwing hay bales around, and they're basically versus somebody who's in a gym doing perfectly structured squats and whatever, and who's the one that's going to survive in the wilderness kind of thing, And like a good example is Starkowitz. I mean, that guy, he doesn't really even ride on a trainer, right? I mean, he's arguably the fastest cyclist in triathlon, obviously. And he just rides, so he's in, he puts himself on the road, and, who knows what you deal with out there all the time. And those are real elements. And same with the yesterday, like you were talking about the swim, and you put us in situations where we would have one wave go out, and then maybe 15, 20 seconds later, you'd send another wave, sort of 2 beach starts in a row. And when we got to a certain point, there's 25 or so people all congested in there, and we're just doing little workout drills at the lake. But when's the last time people have even bumped into anybody in their pool or swam? You know what I mean? Those are the little things, because I noticed that. I don't know if you noticed, but we did a couple of rounds of that, and the first one I really went hard to get into the water. I ran hard to get out in front. So I was kind of out there, and it wasn't a lot of traffic. But the second time we did it, I purposely kind of hauled back and let everybody get out in front of me, because I wanted to sort of feel what it would be like to be around more people for that, 200 yards or whatever we did. And that stuff goes so far, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's just even that, like, if you've been in a pool training for an Ironman, that first time somebody touches your feet or something, it feels like they're punching you in the nose.
Yeah, it feels like Jaws is deep.
It's so true, man. And there's all those little situations. And honestly, man, me, I'm like, when we're at the trace riding, and we're just riding, but I'm always looking for those situations where sometimes I'll just practicing sort of that slipstream kind of pass or whatever it may be, where you kind of ride up on somebody, get close, and then you get around them and slingshot them or whatever, or just when you get to a hill and you're struggling, and you want to shift down, but like sometimes I'll just keep it in a tougher gear just to practice those explosive moments that you might need. And you talk about all this time in the water. It's sort of, that's why you are so big on hard swimming, because how many times will you need that in a race when you're with somebody and you can't get away, or you need to do something really explosive? And if you're not used to that stuff, that's going to feel weird, and it's going to get you out of your game in a hurry. Same with the running, and you get to a hill, and it's just like, man, in training, it's so easy to just kind of like, I'll just walk up this bit, but that's like, it's like, where's that next gear?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you find that? If you're on a treadmill, you're not going to speed up your treadmill when you're tired.
Most people are not. It's about putting yourselves in situations where, am I making predetermined choices, or am I putting myself to where I have to make split-second decisions? And most people don't give themselves enough credit. And so they'll preemptively make choices based on the belief they currently have about themselves that they can't or won't make decisions down the road. So they prevent themselves from ever reaching this ability or reaching this level of performance, because they talk their way out of the decisions you need to make down the road to reach the level that they want to go. And it's all based on predetermined choices sitting in their bedroom or at their kitchen table when they're getting ready to decide to do a workout, because they can control it. But the best learning experiences are when you find yourself in an environment or a situation you never had before, so you just make a decision. And then you look back on it and think, holy crap, how did I do that? And it was because you took every decision, you took it out of yourself, and you just made it. You made that kind of just initial, and I think it's so underrated that the glimpse it gives you into who you can be versus who you tell yourself you are is so invaluable. If you just listen to it and then also grab onto it with both hands and ride that wave, because most athletes talk themselves down from it. Because again,
the wave is huge, man.
Yeah, but most athletes won't. And so they control themselves into they write their own story instead of letting the story tell itself. And every athlete I've ever known that's never reached that full potential is because they can't get their mind they can't get their body out of their mind's way, because their mind just tells them that they can't, or controls it so much it just suffocates every ounce of ability and performance that they have, till finally they can do things to where they're like, oh my God, I didn't. And it's a huge way you and I are both, and we've turned so many people onto it, our athletes and listeners, to racing blind. is because it takes you out of yourself. Every time you look at a watch, look at it, be like, I can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure? Like, who told me you couldn't? Like, that's a you thing. That's not reality. That's not your body. That's not your fitness. That's your mind. That's you. And believe me, I get it. I get that the stories we tell ourselves are so ingrained that it's the ones that we can recite without ever looking back, that we know and we have memorized and they're in our hearts. But it doesn't make it true. But so many people are so afraid to rewrite that story and explore that there might even be a totally different book. I had an athlete race yesterday who earlier in the week, in the last 2 weeks, I was kind of giving her some crap about she had signed up for the sprint distance at Chattanooga, and she's got all the talent in the world, and she's definitely grown a ton as an athlete, way more in the last year than I think she probably was used to. But she texted me yesterday around noon, and she said, so you apparently knew something that I wasn't aware of. I just effing went 2:37 on an official Olympic distance race. That's a 10-minute PR. I knew I was capable of 2:45, so 8 minutes slower. When I looked at my watch when the race was over, I cried. Best of all, no heat stroke and no med tent. Thanks, coach, we did it. Those that are like the experiences that athletes have to where it's almost like you force them into a situation where, like, you know what? If you don't believe what I see and what I know about you as your coach, then the only way for me to force feed it down your throat to where you can finally swallow the reality that is what you can be, then you're going to have to do it in a race, and we're just going to have to see what happens. And then you have this 2.5 hour experience that is just totally shattered. The hundreds and hundreds of hours previously of what you told yourself you could do. And now you can use that, like, drop in the bucket. Now you can take that drop and drop in a new bucket, and it changes everything. But if you don't, and that race is just a small part of it, that can happen in training. Because that's what happens at these camps that we have, is that athletes do things you're like, I had no idea. They tell themselves, I'm not a hill climber. I can't climb hills. Who told you that? I don't know. I just can't. Well, you can't because you told yourself you can't, not because you can't. Huge difference. But that unlearning of and kind of changing that internal belief system of it's not what you know. You don't know that. You've just told yourself that. Like you ask most people, in the South when they turn 22, what do you believe? Oh, I'm this political affiliation, this religious affiliation. Why? Well, I've always kind of been like that. I've had my parents like that, and then you challenge them to like believe or to break it down. They're like, well, I don't really know why. And the same thing can be said for that's with everybody, not just Southern people. I am, but
you're from the South, so you can.
I'm
say
from the
that.
South. I can say this. I'm a white guy from the South, and that's how I grew up until I realized that I had to think for myself. But if you can't, it won't happen until you get challenged. Until you challenge the belief about yourself, and then you realize that I have no factual basis and no experience that this is true. It's just formulated and become affirming to myself through, because I think with so many times what happens, and this is life, like I was having this discussion with an athlete a few weeks ago, and this athlete's been struggling with anxiety and depression and all these kind of things. And I told her, I said, this is speaking for me personally. I can remember from the first time I could think in the earliest memories that I had, I never felt good enough about myself. I just never felt like I was worthy. I never felt good about myself. I just always had this deep internal feeling of a huge lack of self-worth. And then nothing I did was ever going to be good enough, and then I just wasn't worthy of all these things. And then, and I remember I was just born that way. And as life went on, these experiences and these conversations and these events that happened, they're all separate, yet when you have that belief, it becomes affirmation. See? you're not supposed to be like this. See, you can't. See, you're not worth. So it's just affirming that belief that you just had for no reason, that just you were either born with it, or translating that into triathlon in terms of all these experiences happen. Like the athlete who thinks so lowly of themselves that they can never be an athlete, never accomplish this. The only affirming moments that they have are the bad workouts. See, I can't do this. I don't even know why I do this. The positive ones mean nothing because they don't see them, because they aren't looking for that affirmation. They're looking to affirm the belief that they have. And oftentimes that belief is totally wrong. And that belief was wrong. It took me, but it also took me forever to change that, to change that narrative. But that narrative had to come through experiences. I mean, you know this, you know me better than anybody besides my wife. It's like it had to change that narrative of the way that I talk to myself and the way I talk about myself, but that only came through proving and acknowledging all the things that I've been able to achieve and overcome since then. I just didn't. I was done laying by and just sitting by and watching myself roll over and kind of grovel in that self, that crappy self-talk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that can wear on. That's a really good way to put it. The bad workouts become your affirmations, mm-hmm. And man, that is so powerful to think about it that way. I mean, because I as you know, I'm very mixed feelings about how the social media world has become, and you kind of, you see all these messages about people doing epic shit all the time, and all these posts about everybody just their lives are so powerful and so good and whatever, and you just never know. And it's basically, there's a sub message there. It's like, you're not doing enough. You're not good enough. And that's what bothers me, I think, about it the most, is that it's very difficult to kind of get on top of that. When you see all these workouts posted, you were talking about this earlier, I think, is like the workout posts and things like that. But when I first started in this sport, I would see a lot of people randomly posting workouts, and I'd be looking at it because I didn't know, I hadn't done an Ironman yet, and I'd see people that maybe were doing a race I was doing or doing another Ironman that year, and they'd be posting occasionally workouts. It's like, man, they're just gonna crush it.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna kill it. And I'd see these, like, it wasn't every day, but it would just be like once in a while a big workout, and like you're saying, maybe it was on a trainer or a treadmill or something like that, and it was just all like antiseptic and perfectly dialed in and perfect pace and all this stuff with no real world variables involved, or any of that sort of stuff. But then also you realize that, so I'm expecting all these people to just crush this race, right? Or any race, really, an Olympic or like this and that. And then you go out and see and you look at their time and it's like, what? I never saw that coming. I mean, that's just like way off of what I thought that would be. But it's not reality, because you see a hand-picked grouping of different workouts and things like that. So when you're trying to improve yourself and get confidence and get those positive affirmation things going, it's difficult sometimes when you're seeing everybody out there that's sort of like you, that is blowing it up in public. And so it's difficult to look away from that. And I just, that's why I kind of just laugh now when I see sort of these posts about certain workouts. And I used to do it too. That was, I'm not immune from that. It's easy to do. You want to kind of share. And I think that's all part of the process of like, hey, if I post it, that'll give me positive feedback, and then I'll start believing it. And then whatever. It's all this wicked loop. Mm-hmm. So,
isn't it funny though? Because I think we've all got these stories. Like, I remember one of some of the very first triathlons I ever did. This is back in 2005. I'm dating my triathlon age now. I was doing the Kiowa International Triathlon, and I was actually moving back from Hilton Head Island, at that moment. I had lived there. I was working for the Ocean Rescue Squad. I was moving back to Nashville to be with my family. So I packed up my things and I drove to Kiowa and stopped for 2 nights so I could race, and then I drove home. And I was in some of the best swim shape of my life. And I walk up to the swim start, and I was in pretty good shape definitely didn't have a dad bod, but I was in good shape. And I remember looking at these guys and thinking, oh my God, these guys look so in shape and these guys are so fit. I'm going to get crushed. Because, like you see other people and you like transpose it in your own mind, and then it like filters through your own belief system, and then like it spits out like a totally different thing. It's like, it's also kind of like, it's also in turn like how we see ourselves when we look ourselves in the mirror.
Oh man.
Like it's the worst thing about, I hate mirrors. But so you look at yourself in the mirror and you see one thing because it's filtered through your reality and your belief system, then it spits out this image, and it's usually like, it's like walking in one of like those Halloween clown houses where the mirrors are all distorted. It's like, it's so much BS. Yeah, we do it every day. Anyway, and so I swim and I get out of the water and no one's around me. And we have to run up the beach and over these sand dunes, and so everybody was cheering, and I'm not kidding. I was like, I'm last. I was like, I am last. I was the last person. I couldn't find anybody. The sea was like super angry that day. They didn't cancel the swim, and they had it. And I was like, everybody's cheering because I'm last. This sucks.
No one left behind, man.
No one left behind. So I get up out of the water. I run up the beach and I run up transition. I come over the top of this little sand dune and look over to transition, and every single bike is still there. And I was the first person out of the water. But for the previous 30 minutes, I just told myself I was last. But it's I think it's just a good analogy in terms of like how we see ourselves versus the reality of everyone else around us, and how what it's all filtered through, and how it's all just total crap. And then also how everything we do and we say and we believe is based through our own reality. So when you see people say things or do things or express things, it has really nothing to do with you. It's just their version of their own reality. Mm-hmm. But I think in triathlon, like the more often, so like going back to changing your reality is like, so the more times you can change your reality or just challenge your reality, challenge like the reality you've created for yourself, and be open to accepting, because this is also the scariest part, be open to accepting the fact that you might be 100% totally wrong, and that's in fact a good thing, because we create these realities for ourselves based on what we think and what we do and what we want to accomplish, and then but we only are able to do those things up to the level in which we truly innately understand and ultimately totally believe that we can accomplish. Because we don't want to veer off in this direction where we don't know, because then what might happen? And so you have to be able to, and this is for life too, and this is our for your life route and your triathlon reality. It's you have to be able to challenge that, to explore other areas and realize, what, maybe I'm settling in life and in triathlon. Maybe I'm just stuck because I'm actually prefer to be wedged in, and because if I don't, then I don't know where else I'm going to go. So you have to be able to have that kind of strength and courage to push yourself in different directions, or you're never, ever, ever going to find yourself growing or reaching your full potential or doing things that you never dreamed you could do before, because if not, you would have just talked yourself into staying totally 100% put, like you're stuck in concrete.
Yeah, man, that's a good point.
Now, where are you at on that one? It sounds like
well, it's just it's a lot to think about, and it's not a lot to think about. I mean, it's been, you talk about mirrors, and I swear I've looked in the mirror one night before bed and then felt like absolute ass, and then woke up, and then around lunch the next, it's like not even 12 hours later, 24 hours later, I'm like, man, I'm doing great. I'm like in great shape. It's like, where does that, I like how you said that, man. Sometimes what you're thinking might be totally wrong, and that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. There's just a million places to go on this, but I just think a lot of people we get wrapped up in our own thought, and I just like the idea of breaking that chain. And I think that ultimately these kind of camps do that for you. At least they help you do it, and hopefully take a different attitude back to where you were. and you can kind of start approaching things a little bit differently. I'm big on that. It's just like these micro gains and keeping them going, because it's a long process.
Exactly. And don't think about how it's going to end up in 3 years, because again, that's going back to like you being in control. Like, just do it today. Like and that's something that I've always talked about with other people that I know that are in recovery like me, is so many people, and this is true with triathletes, the same mindset. There are a lot of similarities in that people who get in recovery think their life is over, and they talk themselves into never being able to accomplish things and do things, and they just settle. So they talk themselves into never accomplishing anything. When the fact is that the world has just now been opened up, and you can do anything and be anything that you've ever wanted to be. And I've spoke before at treatment facilities, and I've got friends that I still am in contact with, and whenever I talk to them, whenever I go and speak at these places, one of the biggest things I like to get across is that all I remember is one of the very first things that I started to believe about myself when I got sober, and especially based on the life that I used to lead and how I used to believe about myself, was that I'm no longer going to just settle for being okay with things. I don't care how it ends up. I don't even know where it's going to end up, but I'm not going to just be okay. I'm not just going to be fine. I want to be able to participate and do things that push myself and create different opportunities. I don't want to be just miserable. I don't want to be I don't want to settle and be fine and to get stuck in that mentality of you're not growing, you're dying. And I don't want to die the rest of my life. I did that before I got sober, and now I want to just push myself. And I think people just have this mentality of this, in recovery they do, despite the hope that everything's been taken away, and now you're just stuck with this like life sentence of like being sober. Oh, woe is me. And the bad thing, or the great thing is that actually now you have your whole life to live and everything is great. But triathlon is the same thing in terms of the mindset people to bring into it, that they start and they pick up their very first piece of gear, and I immediately think that so many athletes already have placed this ultimate limitation of what they're able to be and who they're able to accomplish. It's now their workouts just reaffirm that. Their experiences reaffirm that. It has, and again, because it's controlled, and it's controlled by you. And the biggest question you can ask yourself, and it's probably a great place to end it, a great time and a great question to ask yourself is who is really telling me who I am? Is it the me I am now? Is it the me that I was when I was 8? Is it the me when I was 15? Because we've all had different life experiences and traumatic events, even through our childhood and through adolescent and our young adult years, or even as we're totally grown adults with families and children. It's like, is this really me making this decision today? Or is this the me of 10 years ago making this decision? Because if it is, they're not living the life that I am now, so they don't get to run it. They don't get to make the decisions. And that goes with everything. That goes with your life. That goes with training. Because training, it's the same person who thought, I never thought I could run 9-minute miles, and they look down, they're running 8s, and so they stop and they run slower because they can't run 8-minute miles. And so that they let that person they are today get ruined by the person they were 3 years ago. And so if you find yourself continuously getting interfered with and sabotaged by the old version of you, then it's time to kick them out. It's time to find a new training partner. And I don't mean find a new actual training partner. I mean find that new training partner within yourself that's going to push yourself to be greater. It's going to push yourself to be better. And it's not going to be like, you know what, Robbie, it's okay to not do this today because you probably can't do it anyway because you never used to could do it, so it's fine. Kick that training partner aside and fire him. And find a new one that's going to say, you know what, we might not know how this is going to end, but we're going to learn something from it, and we're going to learn something from it by going out and doing things that are going to challenge ourselves and push ourselves to be better than we were the day before. Not just by speed, not just by power, but by finding out of the process of self-discovery who we can be. Because the point is, in training and in life, to every day work towards who you can and who you think you should be or who you can be, not to just be okay with who you are. Because a person who made that decision made it a couple years ago.
All right, buddy.
All right. Thank you for joining us. Podcast 279.
Yep. If you want any more information about what we're doing, and there's all kinds of stuff at our website, crushingiron.com. Find out about coaching, training plans, videos, all kinds of camp information. Although, where are we on that?
We got one spot left, I think, for August, but then we will have 2020 camps, or they'll go live for registration on July 1st. We'll put a link to those in the show notes starting in July, and we'll post a few on our closed Facebook page for people to sign up for. They go fast. We sell out every year, all of our camps. So I'm sure that'll be the same next year. But yeah, as with everything, you can always check out crushingiron.com. It is our one-stop shop. And if you have any questions about anything related to the podcast or just training in general or life in general or things we may not have covered on the website, you can always reach out to Mike directly at crushingiron@gmail.com. And you can always reach out to me directly at c26coach@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and check out our store at crushingiron.com. A lot of people are asking about, a lot of people are wearing these zip-up hoodies that we have, and they're like, when are you going to sell those? Well, they're always on sale at crushingiron.com under the store.
That's right.
There's some T-shirts and other stuff you can buy in there. And we plan to get a little more organized with some of the gear and hopefully offer more options here soon. But until then, there's some good stuff on there. And once again, come into the closed Facebook group. Just search Crushing Iron Group on Facebook and answer the question about our podcast. And we'll let you in there. Anything else, buddy?
That's all I got, dude.
All right, man. It's been a pleasure. Thanks again, everybody. And we will talk to you on Thursday.
See you, dude. Bye-bye.